the wildlife, nature, the environmental assets around them. So they very much manage them, they protect them, they nurture them for their own prosperity. And for me, that, I came away having met loads.
A quiet discovery turned into a moment that could change everything for Prince William and the crown itself. As hidden records surfaced, King Charles III was left in heavy silence, unable to respond. A long buried truth began to rise, carrying consequences no one could ignore. But what did William uncover that shook the throne so deeply? The hidden paper beneath the crown? Deep inside the ancient halls of Windsor Castle, what should have been a calm and ordinary check of records slowly turned into something far more serious. The workers who cared for the royal archives had only planned to review old files, the kind of quiet task that rarely brings surprise. But on that day, something felt wrong. It began with small mistakes. Papers were not where they should have been. Lists did not match the items in storage. At first, it looked like simple human error, the kind that happens over time. Yet, the more they searched, the stranger things became. Files had been moved in ways that did not make sense. Important records were no longer in proper order. It was as if someone had quietly rearranged the history. Because of this, Prince William was called to look into the matter himself. He entered the restricted rooms where only a few trusted people were allowed. These rooms held some of the most important documents in the royal family's history. During the search, a sealed red box caught attention. It was supposed to hold old letters connected to royal changes from years past. Nothing inside it was expected to cause concern. But when the box was opened, everything changed. Inside lay a single sheet, carefully preserved. It was not torn or damaged. It had been protected as if it mattered deeply. What made it even more powerful was the mark pressed into its wax. It carried the personal seal of King Charles III. That one detail made the room grow still. This was no ordinary paper. It was real. It was official. And it had been hidden on purpose. As William looked closer, he saw that the writing followed a formal style, like something connected to church law. It spoke about a private decision, one that had never been shared with the public. The document described an annulment linked to the marriage of Charles and Camilla. What made this so shocking was the timing. The date written on the paper showed it had been created months before their well-known wedding. Yet, no one outside had ever heard of such a thing. No public notice had ever been given. No official announcement had been made. It felt as though there were two versions of the past, one that the world had seen, and another that had been locked away in silence. The people in the archive room grew uneasy. These were trained experts used to handling serious matters without emotion. But this discovery shook them. They realized that this paper had not simply been forgotten. It had been removed from normal records on purpose. Someone with power had taken steps to make sure it stayed hidden. William quickly understood what this could mean. If the annulment was real and happened before the public marriage, then it could raise questions about everything that followed. Titles, ceremonies, and official recognition could all be affected. Without delay, he gave a clear instruction. The document must not be copied. It must not be shared. Only a small circle of trusted people could know about it. But even in a place as controlled as Windsor, silence does not last long. As the box was closed again and the room secured, quiet whispers began to spread. They moved through hallways and offices, carried by those who sensed that something important had been uncovered. What troubled William the most was not just the paper itself, but how carefully it had been hidden. It had not been destroyed or lost. It had been kept safe, protected from damage, and placed somewhere only the highest level of authority could reach. This was not the act of someone afraid or careless. It showed planning. It showed intention. It suggested that the truth had been set aside, not erased, but saved for a time when it might be found again. Standing there, William felt the weight of it all. The quiet room seemed heavier, filled with questions that had no easy answers. If his father had chosen to hide something so important, there must have been a reason. And that reason was the most troubling part of all. What kind of situation could lead a king to bury such a powerful truth for so long, knowing it might one day come back into the light? When two stories began to clash, for a long time, people believed the story of the marriage between King Charles III and Camilla was complete and settled. It was seen as a journey that moved from trouble into peace. After many years of public talk, pain, and disagreement, their union was finally accepted. It looked like everything had found its place. But deep inside quiet rooms filled with old records, something did not match that simple story. Hidden papers and mixed-up timelines began to suggest that there might have been another truth, one that had never been shown to the world. What people thought was a clear ending now seemed to be only part of a much larger and more complicated picture. When Prince William carefully compared a newly found annulment paper with the known timeline of the marriage, the details did not fit together at all. The dates stood apart like pieces from different puzzles. This was not a small mistake that could be ignored. It felt like something deeper, something important. The story that had once carried Charles and Camilla from public criticism into royal acceptance now seemed fragile, as if it could fall apart at any moment. Beneath the polished surface, there were signs that two different versions of events might have existed side by side all along. Back in April 2005, the world had been given a clear and simple picture. Charles and Camilla were married in a civil ceremony at Windsor Guildhall. After that, they took part in a special blessing that gave their union a sense of honor and tradition. To many people, that moment felt like the closing of a long and difficult chapter. Their relationship had faced years of judgment, personal sorrow, and strong resistance from within the royal system. Yet, at last, it seemed to be accepted and complete. However, behind those public moments, there were quiet struggles taking place that few people knew about. Legal minds within the palace were dealing with serious questions. These were not small concerns about appearances. They were deep issues connected to church law, long-standing traditions, and the rules that guide the monarchy. Marriage within the royal family is not just about two people. It is tied to history, religion, and the structure of the nation itself. Any change or exception could affect more than just a personal relationship. Now, the discovery of that hidden annulment paper has changed how everything might be understood. If the document is real, and all signs suggest that it is, then it points to a private decision that was never shared. This decision could reshape the meaning of the marriage itself. This idea has unsettled even the most experienced historians who study royal records. Within quiet circles, careful discussions have begun. Some are wondering if Camilla's position as queen may have rested partly on something that had already been quietly changed or taken away behind closed doors. In the royal system, titles are not just decorations. They carry real meaning and authority. That authority comes from truth and clear records. When records begin to disagree with each other, the foundation becomes uncertain. As William continued to follow the trail, he found more clues. The hidden paper carried names and approvals from important figures. These were not unknown individuals. They were people with powerful roles, including senior church officials, royal legal guardians, and those responsible for keeping official records. This showed that the hiding of the document was not an accident. It had been done carefully, with planning, and with the knowledge of those at the highest level. This discovery raised another question, one that felt even more personal. Could Queen Elizabeth II have known about this? Those who understand royal traditions find it hard to believe that she would not. Her time as queen was marked by careful attention to detail, especially when it came to matters like marriage, titles, and succession. It seems unlikely that something so important could pass through royal channels without her awareness, and yet, there is no public sign that she ever spoke about it or acted on it. No record shows that she addressed such a matter openly. That silence now feels different. It no longer seems like something missing. Instead, it feels like something chosen. For William, this thought carries a heavy weight. If his grandmother knew, then her silence was not because she did not understand. It was because she decided to remain quiet. And that leads to an even deeper mystery. If such a powerful paper existed, and if so many important people helped to hide it, then who first gave the order to place it out of sight, locked away where almost no one could find it? That question lingers, quiet but strong, like a shadow that refuses to fade. The trail of silence and the weight of knowing. As Prince William continued his careful search through the hidden records, the feeling in the quiet archive rooms began to change. At first, it had seemed like a simple mistake, a few misplaced files, a few missing notes. But now, the deeper he looked, the clearer it became that this was not an accident at all. What he was seeing had been planned. The papers did not just disappear on their own. They had been moved, separated, and hidden in a way that made them almost impossible to find. It was like someone had taken one important story, and broken it into many small pieces, placing each piece in a different corner so that no one could ever put them back together. This was not carelessness, this was design. And at the center of it all stood one truth that William could no longer ignore. The document he had found carried the clear mark of King Charles III himself. At the bottom of the aged paper was a pressed seal, one that only the king could use. It was a symbol reserved for matters of great importance, matters that could affect the very structure of the crown. But even more striking were the small notes written by hand along the edges of the page. These were not simple marks. They were signs of approval, written in the king's own style. This meant there was no confusion anymore. This was not advice given to him by others. It was not a suggestion waiting to be accepted. It was a decision he had personally reviewed, changed, and allowed. That realization settled heavily on William's heart. Yet, the story did not end there. As he followed the path of the document through old movement records, another detail appeared. The paper had been moved using a special process, one rarely used inside the palace. This process allowed certain files to be taken out of normal records without leaving clear traces behind. It was meant for the most sensitive matters, the kind that could not be openly discussed. But here, it had been used in a way that felt different. Instead of protecting the truth, it had been used to hide it. In simple terms, someone had used the highest level of royal protection not to keep history safe, but to bury it deep where almost no one would ever look. As the palace record keepers quietly tried to follow the trail, soft conversations began to rise among those who had long wondered if there was more to the story of Charles and Camilla than the public had ever been told. Some began to think that this hidden annulment may have come from a private struggle inside the palace, a time when worries about the future of the crown were growing stronger, a time when small legal questions could turn into large problems if left unanswered. If this idea was true, then the issue was never really about love. It was about how things looked. It was about keeping the image of the monarchy steady and unbroken, even if the truth behind the scenes was more complicated. That thought brought a quiet chill, because it meant that one of the most watched royal marriages in modern times might not have been fully shaped in public ceremonies, but instead in silent rooms filled with legal papers, far away from the eyes of the people. Then another discovery made everything feel even more serious. As William studied the official household records connected to Camilla, he noticed something unusual. After the date written on the hidden document, certain descriptions tied to her marital status slowly began to fade away from internal files. Her titles were still there. Her public role remained the same. The words spoken to the world did not change. But inside the private records, something shifted. Terms that had once appeared often were no longer written. In their place were softer, less clear phrases that seemed to hide more than they revealed. This could not have happened by chance. It showed that people inside the system had adjusted the records quietly. They had made changes without drawing attention, shaping the documents to match a reality they could not speak about openly. Those who served close to the crown began to feel uneasy as they learned more. They understood what could happen if this hidden story ever reached the outside world, because the problem would not stop with Camilla's title. It could spread much further. Years of events, official statements, and important ceremonies had all been built on the belief that her position was clear and unquestioned. If that belief began to break, many parts of the royal story could be affected. This was the situation now facing William. What had started as a quiet search had become something much larger. He was no longer dealing with a private family matter. He was facing the possibility of a deep crack in the foundation of royal truth, something that could force the monarchy to look again at what it had already presented to the nation. Each new paper he uncovered made the situation more serious. Each name he saw connected more people to the hidden actions. Each altered record made it clear that this was not a small secret, but a wide and carefully managed effort. And yet, just as William began to prepare himself to speak to his father, to bring forward what he had found even if it caused pain between them, something else happened, something unexpected. Before he could take that step, news of the discovery reached Camilla, placing each piece in a different corner so that no one could ever put them back together. This was not carelessness, this was design. And at the center of it all stood one truth that William could no longer ignore. She was quietly informed that the sealed file had been found. Those who were present at that moment noticed something that they could not forget. Her reaction was not one of surprise. It was not confusion nor denial, but anger. That single response moved through Clarence House like a sudden storm. The calm of the halls was broken by a feeling of alarm that had not been seen in many years, not since a time of great royal crisis long ago. Those who worked close to the inner circles understood the meaning of that reaction right away. Such anger does not come from someone who is hearing something new for the first time. It comes from recognition. In that moment, everything changed again. What had once been seen as a hidden legal mystery now became something deeply personal. It suggested that the person at the center of the secret might not have been unaware of it at all. And once that thought entered William's mind, it changed how he saw everything. Every missing piece, quiet change, and even unanswered question. They no longer felt like random events. They began to form a darker picture, one shaped by careful choices and hidden knowledge. Standing at the edge of this truth, William now faced a question far heavier than before. Not just what had been hidden, but who had known all along. The day's silence could no longer hold. Inside the quiet rooms of Clarence House, the air changed almost at once when the news arrived. The hidden paper had been found. What happened next surprised many who stood close enough to see it unfold. When Camilla was told about the discovery, she did not ask if the document was real. She did not pause to question where it came from. Instead, her first move was strong and immediate. She asked to see the paper herself. She wanted it brought straight to her private office before anyone else could continue studying it. That single request made people uneasy. It suggested something deeper. It hinted that she might already know about the paper, even though it was something she should never have seen before. The request was turned down. The document would remain under careful watch. But that refusal did not end the matter. It only set off a wave of quiet actions that moved quickly through the palace. Within a short time, people connected to Camilla began raising concerns. They questioned the process being used to examine the document. They argued about rules and permissions. They suggested that the work should pause until higher approval was given. On the surface, these actions looked careful and proper. But to those watching closely, it felt like something else. It felt like an effort to slow things down, to delay, to keep the truth from moving forward too quickly. Meanwhile, Prince William saw what was happening. He responded by tightening control around the archive room. Fewer people were allowed inside. Only those he trusted most could come near the records.
The wildlife, nature, the environmental assets around them. So they very much manage them, they protect them, they nurture them for their own prosperity. And for me, that, I came away having met loads.
At the same time, the palace communication team moved into quiet action. They began preparing for what might happen if the story escaped beyond the palace walls. Private notes were shared among senior staff. These were not meant for the public. They were plans, ready in case the situation grew out of control. The fear was no longer distant. It felt close. If even a small part of this hidden story reached the outside world before the palace could respond, it could cause serious trouble. People might ask hard questions. Leaders might demand answers. The press could follow every detail without rest. What had begun as concern was now becoming something much larger. Behind closed doors, the mood shifted from worry to alarm. This was not just about protecting a reputation anymore. It was about holding the entire structure together. Inside the private office of King Charles III, people who had long stood united began to see things differently. Some believed the truth must remain hidden at all costs. They felt that revealing it would weaken the king and bring doubt to the crown, especially at a time when his health and public support already faced challenges. Others felt the opposite. They believed that hiding the truth any longer would only make things worse. To them, the signs were too clear. The evidence was growing. If the truth came out later, it would be far more damaging. This difference in belief created tension. Even simple conversations became careful and guarded. People chose their words slowly, unsure of who might later question what had been said. For William, everything changed the moment he saw how Camilla had reacted.
He's doing very well at the moment. He does like to keep having his nappy changed, and I did the first nappy, yeah.
Until then, he had considered that she might not have known anything about the hidden paper. It was possible, he thought, that his father had acted alone. But her response told a different story. Her anger came quickly, without confusion. Her actions showed urgency. Those around her moved in a way that suggested they were not surprised. All of this led William to a difficult thought. Perhaps this was not a secret kept by one person alone. Perhaps it was shared. That idea was heavy. It meant the truth had been protected by more than silence. It had been guarded by people working together at the highest level. William could not carry this alone, so, in complete secrecy, he called for help from within his own family. Princess Anne and Prince Edward were quietly asked to join him. Their arrival spoke louder than any words. It showed that the situation had grown beyond a hidden matter. It had become something that could affect the future of the royal line itself. But even with their support, one step still remained. William had to face his father. That meeting took place far from the noise of the palace, inside the calm grounds of Sandringham House. There, away from watchful eyes, father and son sat together. Between them lay more than just a table. There was history, there was trust, and there was the weight of a secret that could not stay hidden any longer. William placed the document before his father. Alongside it, he set the records that showed how it had been moved, hidden, and kept out of sight. For a long moment, nothing was said. The silence itself felt heavy, as if the room was holding its breath. Those who later heard about that meeting said that Charles looked tired, not just in body but in spirit. The secret he had buried so carefully had returned, and now it stood in front of him through the eyes of his own son. When he finally spoke, he did not deny what was before him. He admitted it. He explained that the annulment had been approved during a time of uncertainty. There had been worries about legal questions connected to his marriage. Advisors had warned that these questions could cause trouble for the monarchy. According to him, the choice to hide the truth had not been made for personal gain. It had not been about titles or advantage. He said it had been done to protect the crown. He believed that revealing the issue at that time might have created confusion, fear, and lasting damage to public trust. To him, the silence had been a shield, but to William, it sounded different. It felt less like protection and more like a reason to justify what had been done. That was the moment when the conversation changed. William asked the question that could not be ignored. If this action had truly been taken for the good of the monarchy, then why had so many important people been left out? Why had members of the Succession Council not been told? Why had trusted guardians of the royal system not been included? These were the very people whose duty was to protect the crown from hidden problems like this. The room grew quiet again, because these questions were not easy to answer. They touched the weakest part of the explanation. They showed that something important had been kept away, not just from the public, but from those who should have known. And in that silence, the truth felt closer than ever. Not just the truth about the document, but the truth about the choices that had been made, and the costs they might now carry for the future. When truth becomes too heavy to hide. In the quiet hours after the meeting, one truth settled heavily in the heart of Prince William. A crown can stand strong for a time when things are hidden, but once the truth comes into the light, trust begins to break. And without trust, even the strongest throne can feel unsteady. As the conversation with King Charles III came to an end, the weight of everything that had been said could be seen clearly. The king no longer looked firm and untouched. Instead, he seemed tired and worn, as though the years and the secret he carried had finally caught up with him. His health, already fragile, now appeared even more delicate under the strain of the moment. This was not a picture of power. It was a moment of quiet human struggle. A father facing the result of a choice made long ago, now standing before his son with no way to turn back time. For William, the pain was deeper than the discovery itself. It was not only about a hidden document or a secret decision. It was about trust. The bond between father and son had been shaken at the very moment when they needed to stand together the most. The future of the monarchy depends on unity during times of change. But now, that unity felt uncertain. The man William believed would protect the truth of the crown had instead passed down a burden, wrapped in silence. When they left that room, nothing had truly been settled. The paper was still real. The act of hiding it still could not be defended. And between them, a quiet distance had formed, one that words alone could not close. Yet something important had changed. The truth had moved from one generation to the next, and with it came a question that could not be ignored. What happens when something hidden for so long can no longer stay hidden? By the time morning came over Windsor Castle, the palace had entered a new kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but a careful and tense stillness. It was the kind that follows something too powerful to speak about, yet too important to forget. The document could no longer remain buried. Its existence now touched every corner of royal life. What had once been a single sheet of paper hidden in a locked place had grown into something much larger. It had become a quiet force moving through the palace, touching history, law, and the future all at once. Within the inner circle, the focus began to shift. The question was no longer whether the truth was real. That had already been answered. Now the question was how long it could be contained. Before the day had fully begun, trusted legal minds were already at work behind closed doors. They were called in quietly under strict rules of secrecy. Their task was not simple. They had to look at the most sensitive issue of all. They had to ask whether Camilla's place, her titles, and the many official moments tied to her role might need to be reconsidered. This was not just about names or ceremony. If the hidden decision had changed the timeline of her marriage, then many past records could now stand on uncertain ground. That thought brought a chill to those who understood the system. A monarchy does not rest only on tradition and public events. It stands on clear records and steady truth. When those records begin to shift, everything built upon them can begin to move as well. Now, every statement that mentioned Camilla had to be looked at again. Each line, each word, had to be checked carefully in the shadow of a document that was never meant to be seen again.